My name is Enoch Bird, and I'm comparing, in my opinion, the two greatest basketball players ever, in Bill Russell and Michael Jordan.
All about the grind, Bill Russell. Money tie, yeah, man. Bill Russell. Winning everything, Bill Russell. Hand full of gold rings, Bill Russell. All about the grind, Bill Russell. Money tie, yeah, man. Bill Russell. Winning everything, Bill Russell. Hand full of gold rings, Bill Russell.
I wanna be an all-star. Like Michael Jordan, I wanna be an MVP. Like Michael Jordan, 6 championship rings. Like Michael Jordan, I want to peace. Like Michael Jordan.
We'll see who is the greater of the two. A lot of people just have one reason for saying which guy's greater, like he was a better basketball player or he has more championship rings. But I have 15 different categories comparing the two. So I'm going to start with skills. Bill Russell was an inferior offensive player, even though he was the greatest defender of all time. And Michael Jordan hardly had a weakness except for being a spotty three-point shooter.
Clock running down, 3 seconds, three-point shot, no good.
And he even developed that. So I give that to Michael Jordan. Statistical dominance, that also goes to Jordan. So Jordan's beating Russell 2-0 right now. Value, this is when it gets interesting. Michael Jordan was obviously a very valuable player, one of the most valuable players ever. But Bill Russell was more valuable to his team than Jordan was to his team.
Say what?
Say what?
In Jordan's absence, in '94, the Bulls went from 57 to 55 games, which isn't much of a difference. Russell missed 5 games in his career, and the Celtics went 0-5 in those games. They lost every game that Russell was out. And before Bill Russell came to this team, the Celtics were only basically a first-round playoff team. So he was more valuable to his team. So Jordan's still beating him 2-1. Era time. Bill Russell played in a time where there weren't many black players and there weren't many foreign players and there weren't many exceptional athletes that were as strong as him. Plus, Michael Jordan not only played in the greatest stretch of basketball in NBA history from 1987 to 1991, but he was also the best player. So I have to give that to Jordan. He's beating him 3-1. Coach's help. Michael Jordan played with, in my opinion, the greatest coach ever in Phil Jackson, while Bill Russell played with Red Auerbach, who's a little bit overrated because without Russell, his teams didn't go very far. So I give that to Russell. Jordan's beating him 3-2. So now teammates help. Yes, Bill Russell played with 8 Hall of Famers throughout his career, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily belonged in the Hall of Fame or that they were top 100 talents. Like Frank Ramsey doesn't really belong in the Hall of Fame. Tom Sanders, Tommy Heinsohn, they weren't top 100 talents, as you'll see. John Havlicek wasn't exactly Hondo Havlicek yet either. He became the player that he would eventually become in the 70s. In the 60s, he actually hurt the team with his offense, only shooting 39 to 41%. Russell's best teammate was Sam Jones. Michael Jordan obviously playing with 2 top 100 talents in Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, and a very efficient Horace Grant, and a lot of clutch shooters on his team like John Paxson and Kyle Macy and Steve Kerr and Tony Kukoc. So I give that to Russell. They're tied 3-up. Prime. Michael Jordan probably had the greatest prime of any player ever, so I give that to Jordan. Playoff performances, these two were tied. Jordan's beating Russell 4-3 right now. Playoff performances, they're basically tied because Russell averaged 18 and 29 in Game 7s. And Jordan once averaged 41 points in the finals. Highest playoff career scoring average. The flu game, the Game 6 against Utah. Just dominance. MVPs that he should have had. Now, this is different than MVPs that they actually had. My criteria for MVPs was usually win shares divided by minutes played divided by teammates' projected wins, but that's a little complicated. And whoever had the highest number would be the MVP, but that's kind of complicated. Anyway, Jordan had the most MVPs that he should have had. He should have had the MVP from 87 to 93, and then he should have had the MVP from 96 to 98. So that's 9 should have had MVPs for Michael Jordan. Just incredible, really. Jordan's beating Bill Russell 5-3. If my life depended on it, this was a +2 because it was the most important question, or the most important category that I compared two players with. If I had to go one game and I could choose any great player from NBA history to be on my team, and I'd have to win that game or else I would die or something, I'd pick Bill Russell, just because what if Michael Jordan was off? You know? I mean, there's a good chance he wouldn't be off, but there's also a good chance that he would be, because that happens. Yes, Michael Jordan was an elite defensive player, probably the greatest defensive guard ever, but if Bill Russell was off on offense, that didn't really mean much because he usually was off on offense, only shooting 44% for his career. And plus, Bill Russell's record in life or death games, 16-2 in elimination games, 10-0 in game 7s, which is incredible. I'd have to go with Russell. Now, usage. Now, this is basically how much did a player accomplish by how much he was used. As in, for example, LeBron James was greater than Allen Iverson because he accomplished more without being used as much. Well, that's one of the reasons why he's greater. That's not the only reason why he's greater. I would give this to Russell, but he was an inferior offensive player, so that kind of cancels it out. Alpha dog success. Bill Russell was the most successful player in NBA history and the most successful alpha dog in probably sports history. Now, this is different than just championships. This is championships this is how much did you accomplish as the best player on your team. Bill Russell accomplished more as the best player on his team than any other player. 11 championships in 13 years. For example, it's not just championships. Like Carmelo Anthony is one of the reasons why Carmelo Anthony is greater than Tracy McGrady is because he made it past the first round of the playoffs as the best player on his team. So it's not just championships that is success. It's just how far you've gotten in the playoffs and how much you've accomplished throughout your career as the best player on your team. So I give that to Russell. Clutchness. Bill Russell was 10-0 in Game 7, 16-2 in elimination games. But we all know about Michael Jordan's clutchness. I believe it was 25 game-winning shots and free throws throughout his career. And plus, we all will know about the shot in Game 6 versus Utah. 41 points a game, just in the finals against Phoenix. Just clutchness. They were both the most clutch players in NBA history, so it's a tie. Players faced against that same position. Bill Russell went up against a few really good players, like Darrell Imhoff, who was 6'10", a great rebounder, and Wilt Chamberlain, of course, and Elvin Hayes, Wes Unseld in his later years, in his last year. But Michael Jordan played in the golden age of shooting guard. He had to defend the golden age, all the great shooting guards like of the 90s and 80s, like Mitch Richmond and Chris Mullin, and a lot of other guys too, like Steve Smith, just different. Reggie Miller. So I gave that to Jordan, and there were more too that were really good shooting guards. And then longevity, durability. Michael Jordan did get injured one year in the 1985-1986 season with a broken foot. He missed most of the season, but throughout his career, he has been very durable. But he didn't play an extremely long time either. I believe he only played 16 seasons when you count his Wizards years, and 14 as a Bull. Bill Russell Now this is why I give the advantage to Russell. Russell didn't play as long. He was a few years short at 13 years. But you gotta look at the time that he was playing in. Nobody was in shape. A lot of people drank, and there weren't personal dietitians and trainers back in the day. They didn't stay at 5-star hotels and get whatever they wanted to make themselves feel comfortable. It was a very hard life on the road, considering that they had crazy, insane schedules back then for traveling. Put that all together, and plus the fact that Russell was a big man, it was actually very impressive to last as long as he did back in his era. So I gave that to Russell. So in all, Michael Jordan was the better basketball player, but Bill Russell was the greater player. Michael Jordan beat Russell in skills, statistical dominance, era time, prime, MVPs that he should have had, players faced at the same position, which is 6 different categories. But Russell narrowly edges him out because he had more value, he had less help from his coaches and teammates. If my life depended on it, because of his proven history of success, I have to take him. He was alpha dog success and longevity and durability, which is 7 different categories. So Bill Russell beats Michael Jordan 7-6. That's why I believe Bill Russell is the greatest basketball player ever, because of a multitude of categories, not just one category like championships. Also, I created a top 100 basketball players list over the course of 3 months, which using the same criteria, comparing each and every single player on that list, and some players that didn't get to make the list. So here's the top 100. Please note that LeBron James is actually number 7 and Wilt Chamberlain's number 6, not the other way around. LeBron James is number 7, Wilt Chamberlain is number 6. Also, honorary mentions that didn't make the top 100 included guys like Tom Chambers, Jack Sikma, Tommy Heinsohn, and a few others. Stephon Marbury, Rajon Rondo. Those guys ended up not making the top 100, but they were very close. Don't forget that in the comments section, if you want me to compare any of the top 100 players to show why one was greater than the other, like who was greater, Stockton or Julius Erving, I could compare them, like guys that are next to each other. So that's it for me. I'm Enoch Bird, and I'll be coming back to you in a little bit with maybe some more videos. Bye. Another reason why Russell is greater than Jordan is he played in an era that had tougher quality of competition. Now, that doesn't mean he played in a better era, but the quality of competition he faced was more balanced and was greater. In his best team with the Celtics, he only won 60 games, and that was in 1965. Now, Jordan faced a washed-up league in the mid to late 90s, and a bunch of expansion teams like Vancouver and Miami and Orlando, and teams that weren't that great. That only won like 15 games. So that boosted the Bulls' record up by a lot, helping them on their way to that asterisk 72 win season in 96. I have an asterisk personally because the competition they faced was vastly inferior. So that definitely helped the aging Bulls win their last 3 championships, while the Celtics had to deal with very deep teams like the Royals and the Warriors.